Welcome to the Airbnb Blueprint Podcast, your go-to training hub for building your very own Airbnb business. In each episode, we break down the exact blueprint that helps us build a multi-six-figure Airbnb business from scratch, and we'll show you how to do the same. Continue learning with us for free in the Airbnb Blueprint coaching community on Facebook. Find the link in our show notes below. Commit, believe, succeed. Let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We've got the main man with us again this week.
Hey, hello.
Don't know why I keep introducing you like this is a new thing now that you are, a standard part of the podcast. But no, it's always good to have you here. I want to talk a little bit about the misconception in property that you need a lot of money in order to get started to buy a property. You need deposits for mortgages. You need to have hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank. I think this is a big mindset issue for people who are looking at getting into property, because you see it on the social media, right? It's connected or it's linked to, the guy in his Lamborghini, sitting there with doing it, running his paid ad, which is obviously leased, right? We know that, but it doesn't have to be the way. And there are things you can do in property in order to start generating really good cash flow income, replace your job salary, right? Without needing all of that money in the first place, or even needing to be mortgageable to buy anything. As we know, the very best way to do that is what we're talking about here, buying and selling deals.
I think we're changing with time. Obviously rent to rent works before, and I think it's a great way to leverage to get into property without having to buy the property. But times change, things change, and we have to pivot with it, to adapt with it. The main misconception is people still want to grab a hold on the bricks and mortar. I want to show my key shots. I want to show my actual house that maybe I own, or maybe I rent, or maybe I manage it, in order to make a little bit of money on that.
Let's be honest. It's a great thing to own property,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
You see a lot of people now that are saying, it's a big ball and chain, and, it's the worst thing you can do is ever owning your own home. I personally think it's ridiculous. As long as it's not breaking you and you can make the payments, there's all kinds of benefits, right? We've got our buy-to-let portfolio. Yeah. It goes up in time, capital appreciation. It's always going to go up unless you're extremely unlucky, as long as you can buy and hold for the long term.
Yep.
And then the best thing is that you can keep remortgaging those properties and getting out all that tax-free money, right? So it's a great thing to own property. You do want to strive for that, and it gives you security for your family as well, right? Yep. Something you can pass down to your kids. But the point is that you can use lots of different strategies in the property world to generate good cash flow, which you can then use over time and at some point to then go ahead and start buying property, right? So it's just another vehicle to get you there. And, there's not really that many strategies in the property world where you don't need, some money. And when I say some money, I mean still a reasonably significant amount. Like, let's talk about the rent to rent game, right? Which, as you know, we're no longer, hugely involved with and not massive fans of now because things have changed. But all of these training schools and all of these providers and online ads and programs always sell it as, well, you don't need any money. Rent to rent's the way to get into property if you don't have any money, which simply isn't true. You still need, you're not going to get anywhere really with less than, I'd say, 8 to 10,
15K, I would say.
At the low end.
Yeah.
And that's still a huge amount of money to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Compared to buying and selling deals where you get to make probably more money with less stress, and you really genuinely don't need any money to get started.
It's the mindset, mainly it's the mindset issues that people don't really see it, because they want to make sure that they get, maybe if you talk about, service accommodations or Airbnb bookings, they want to be the one that takes the bigger chunk. But what they don't see behind that is the liabilities that comes with it as well. The rents, the utilities, the operational costs, and everything that comes with it. So when people put out, a massive post to say, I've got like £30,000 booking coming in my way, and that's for, let's say, I don't know, maybe that's for like the whole 6 months or something like that, right? You don't really get that 30 grand straight away. If somebody were to be silly enough to pay you up front, great, but that's still not your money.
Yeah.
You only get it after, let's say, the first 28 days pass, then the first 28 nights is clear, because the rest is still not your money. You have to, like, to me, I've seen it too often that people spend the money that's not theirs first. And then they put themselves, things changed, cancellation came up, and the time that you have to refund it back to the client, then you have a problem, because you don't have the money anymore to spend it. So,
and we've spoken about this endlessly, right? Is looking through, benefiting from our experience, benefiting from our mistakes, which there is a huge catalogue of mistakes that we've made in the training world, where we have come in green, not knowing anything, and we've sat in the room and we've seen the pitches, where the students get up on stage, they get pulled up, they're getting a kickback in some way, right? They're pulled up on the stage and they're asked to speak about their latest 12-month booking, from this company or that company, and £100,000 that they made, which, as Pooh's just explained, just isn't the way you get paid in, 28, you're invoicing every 28 days. And a lot of the times these bookings, they last a month, 2 months, then they fizzle out, the project ends, they find somewhere cheaper, so it's understanding what it is that's real and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, a lot of clients that stay with us for over a year.
Yeah.
But the intention,
once you've nurtured that relationship, right?
Yep. I mean, it depends on the project as well. It depends on, it's case by case, I would say. But again, we always assess the situations every 28 days. So, goes into mid-month, would you like to extend for another 28 days? Yes, they would. Then great, But it's never like, yes, we might have, 12 months inquiries coming through, but we always take it month by month.
And just bringing it back to the, staying on this direct point of, how much do you need to get involved in this immediate business? Becoming an OTA, an online travel agency, basically, and buying and selling these deals, making the same amount of money as you would managing these properties, right? Without any of the work, any of the stress, dealing with the clients, doing the 3 a.m. bullshit calls about the heating broken down, any of that. All that goes away. You're still going to make the same money. And this is truly, genuinely the only business where you honestly and truly do not need, I'm talking about what, £1,500 to get started and start making money?
Well, you need your phone to make calls.
Yeah. Who doesn't have a phone?
Exactly. Yep.
Who doesn't have the internet?
Yeah.
And who doesn't have enough? If you don't have enough to open up a company, then I don't know what to tell you. But as long as you've got a few £100 in your pocket, this is the only way to genuinely have a really good chance, if you know what you're doing, to go ahead and make a 6-figure income pretty quickly.
So I mean, it all comes back to what we said before. Lead generations is the key, and nurturing the clients, making sure that they know you are there all the time, and then keep doing repeated business, so that's pretty much the key to succeed in this case.
Yeah.
And to be able to accommodate every single inquiries that comes your way, and just be visible in the market, So we talked about this in the last few episodes before. And
we've established that you don't need any money to get started. Genuinely and truly, you don't need any money to get started other than a few £100s. I think what you do need, and what maybe we can talk about a little bit, because I think it's the biggest thing that's holding people back, is, the mindset that goes behind it, and really understanding and being willing to commit to what you need to do in order to make it work. Because I think the problem that you've got with anything in this world, and why a lot of people never actually make it past the starting line, is that when something's free, or that when they're not investing a lot of money into it, then the work that you need to do in order to really get it to the next level, it never really comes, because it's like, well, it only cost me 50 quid to open the company. I've been kind of doing a bit of it here and there, outside of Netflix and EastEnders for 30 minutes 3 times a week, and no leads have come in. So this obviously doesn't work. It must all be bullshit. Whereas if they've just spent 20 grand on a rent-to-rent course,
you need to get the money back.
They're like, shit,
Yeah.
This is all on my credit card. I'm invested. I can't watch Netflix. I've got to do this instead. You know what I mean? Let's talk about what do people need to expect. What's the level of work and time commitment? Because a lot of people are going to be doing this, trying to get this thing moving alongside their full-time job. Kids, 9 to 5.
Yeah, I would say it's, like, because this line of business, right, it's more like a supplement of their main service accommodation or Airbnb existing business. So in a way, they already have the workload to do. But if you are just relying on people to book your property and then the main income just coming from that property alone, sometimes you can run into a really, really difficult, like harsh winters, maybe, some dry spell seasons that it's going to happen at some point. And if you're afraid to be a bit different than other people, you're not going to survive the market. Because all you do, it's like, if we compare ourselves back to be like a typical estate agencies, right? And then if you can't sell the house, what would they say to their clients? What would they say? They can only go back to the client and say, I'm so sorry, your house is not moving. What can we do to make it move? There's only one way, right? Which is cut the price.
Exactly.
So comparing to the accommodations inquiries, if you're not getting booked, most people would do exactly the same, which is cut the price. Slash your rates. And then you start to attract a different market, different demographics to come in, and that's when the problem would happen. So
you start attracting the riffraff and the parties.
I mean, it's just this week that we've been working on some case. We reach out to one of the partners, and I look at the rates. It's beyond ridiculous. Like, the typical rate for the property we trying to serve and trying to secure in this case is around 130. This guy came in cheap, 70 quid per night. And the property wasn't bad. It wasn't dressed, I would say, appropriately, but it's good enough. It's fine. He's got his own taste, so that's okay. But to come in that cheap just to survive, it's just sad to see.
So what do you do in that case? We're the business, right? We're buying and selling deals. We've got the lead from the client. We've nurtured the relationship. They've come forward and said, I don't know, we need this 3-bedroom house in Newcastle, right? You go out, you put it out to the network, to the partners. Someone comes forward with a property that matches the criteria, but the rates are way off skew, which obviously that's then...
When you say way off, is that like more? Or
no, down, like you just explained, like way lower than they should be or way lower than what the client's budget is, because this person's, for whatever reason, uneducated or they're new or, they're just wrong. And that's obviously going to affect your income, right, from the booking, because we're working on a commission basis. So what would you say then? Would you advise and say, look, the property works, we can put this forward, but you're not charging enough?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we have to be transparent with it. We're always transparent with all our partners. They said, we're going to be taking 15% plus VAT adding on. So don't be shy to put on your best rates, because that's where we have to come in and try to negotiate the best rates for them as well. And at the same time, not breaking our clients' budgets. So we're not trying to squeeze everybody to death, right? Because that's unethical. But we're trying to make sure that everybody wins so we can keep repeating the business again and again. And that's the key. If they come way under, we have to find out, is there like specific reason for you to come in so low? And if they're like, well, I just want to make sure I can fill my properties because I'm struggling, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, why don't we can try to get this price for you. But of course we take 15% plus VAT on that. Would that work for them? And if they say yes, yep, let's try to make it happen.
So you're actually researching the areas when the bookings come in, because, because we're placing deals up and down the UK,
country, yep.
You're dealing in places that, you have absolutely no idea what the rate should be.
Reach out to the partners, and, when they meet a certain criteria that we have set out, and when they send the quotation in, you can gauge the difference.
It's like if the client says we've got a budget of 200 a night and this person comes in at 75, you're like, okay, there's a problem here.
Then you have to match whether it's the right type of properties that they're looking for or not. If everything ticks all the boxes and everything is fine, but they're not charging enough, then we would tell them that you should charge more.
Yeah.
Because if they charge more, we get more commissions out of it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's it, guys. That's as simple as it is.
But you do get some other odd people as well that would come in way off the mark. Way over the mark. It's like you like your rate, just for the sake of arguments, your standard rate is 110, 120 pounds per night. But when we present the options for you, opportunities for you, they were charging us like 180 quid a night. I said, what's that about?
And it's stupid because, unless they're going to immediately go on to their channel manager and adjust all their rates, because they know that we're going to look up the listings.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So they're giving us one price and then another price direct through.
But most people assume they would assume that we don't do any due
diligence. Yeah, it's stupid, really, because all that does is
just damaging the relationship.
Damage the relationship,
and we're like, oh, sorry, can't work with you.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. So.
Yeah, we've spoken kind of in detail quite a bit around this, right? What we do and what you can do, but this is just to highlight, because there's so much overwhelm there now. And maybe for another episode, we can talk about the overwhelm and, the way that lots of people kind of flip-flop between different strategies, like the whole chasing the shiny penny syndrome, which, we've definitely touched on in the past. Yeah. And, it just doesn't work. And everybody's, property kind of has this connection with, I hate to say it, but a lot of people are kind of in a bit of a desperate situation, and everybody's kind of scrapping around trying to find the latest get rich quick strategy. And the truth is, I hate to kind of burst the bubble around this, but this podcast is all about being truthful and honest and ethical, and most of the strategies out there, it's not going to work for you. You can't just come in. I personally believe you can't just 1 minute you're a car mechanic and the next day you're going out and looking for,
multi-million deals,
grade 2 listed building, developments and brownfield sites. It's just not going to happen.
No,
nobody's going to invest in you.
And we've seen that, with a few courses as well, that, when we were sitting on the same table, and one person came and said, look, I haven't got any portfolios, haven't done any of this, but I'm chasing 20 million deals. Estate. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Why can't you just grab the lowest hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Let's make it work. Let's keep that going and then build the momentum from there.
Can you imagine seriously, like that person who hasn't even owned a buy-to-let or done a HMO, sitting down with an investor and trying to, having a conversation around, trying to raise a few million for a development. It's pipe dream stuff. I'm not saying you can't get there. I'm not saying you won't get there, but you got to be realistic about where you are right now. And if where you are right now is in a position where you're trying to pay your mortgage and make an extra few £100 a month for the car payment, then this is what you need to be doing. Because, if you want to go down the more advanced development route and you get sucked into all this bullshit that you see online, even if you're some kind of genius and you do manage to, lock in a deal and raise the money and do all the due diligence and all the legal stuff and the huge team of contracts and all the rest of it, you're not going to make any money from that development for like 18 months, right? So it's not going to help you. Whereas with this, as long as you've got a phone, you've got the internet and you've got a good work ethic, literally within, it could be days, a week, you can be doing your first deal. And who knows, that first deal could be for 10 units for 6 months to house a team of 40 contractors for the HS2 project, and you've just locked in, £3,000 or £4,000 a month in pure profit with no outgoings, with no upfront costs, with no real stress, and without having to spend 20 grand on some 2-bit bullshit training course that's promising you a load of shit that isn't going to happen.
There's a massive relocation case. 40 units that we need to accommodate for 40 families. Each particular unit would probably bring I don't know, say 5. If you can say 500. That's
realistic.
Yeah,
I'm crap at maths. That's
massive.
Is that 20 grand a month?
Yeah.
20,000 a month.
And this could be locked for the next 12 months or more. So 20 grand a month times 12.
20 grand a month times 12. 240K for the year.
For properties that you don't even own.
And just bring in
left and right and make a lot of money for other people at the same time.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people can't see it and they don't do it enough.
Well, I just don't think people know how to do it. And there's not enough being spoken around the potential here because, everybody's still riding on the wave of rent to rent, and it's the easy sell to somebody who's, hard up and desperate.
Yeah. But in some ways, I do understand that as well, because I was in the same situation, that when before we got into the business, and I keep thinking that I need to own the bricks and mortar because that's the only way that I see from other people.
Yeah.
And I need to own them to be wealthy, to be successful. And then later on, I find out that, holy crap, I can't do maintenance. I'm pretty crap at designing anything. Like if I go around the house, I'm not a visual person, so I can't see how to dress them to do interior design. I can't do it. I don't like talking to the cleaning teams. I'm a bad manager, but I like to do things. I like to sell things. So really, if I'm going to be just after the bricks and mortars, I'm not going to make it at all, So I think the question that we get taught before is, are you really after the bricks and mortars, or are you really after the benefits that comes with it? And I know straight away, like for me, I'm the second one.
Yeah.
Because I want the benefit, I want the lifestyles, I want the money that comes with it without having to own it first. But when we have the right opportunity to own the right property that brings lots of money in, I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
That's when we move quickly.
Have that treasure chest and be ready to.
But not grabbing every single house that becomes, available. And we did that, we
for sure.
tried to make every single deal works, and it turned out to be like super sour.
It's not all rainbows and butterflies owning properties, Mortgages go up and down, borrowing goes up and down. You can get caught out. We say it till we're blue in the face, right? If this is real, this is not just some sales talk. If this appeals to you, if what we're saying makes sense, if you're one of the few smart people out there that can look past the stuff that you see online about, become a millionaire in 3 months doing this, if you're realistic and you've got a good work ethic and you don't have a lot of money to get a property business off the ground, but you're hungry, then this is where you need to be, and we can show you how to do it. So reach out, links in the show notes. We'll get you started, get you moving. You could change your life in just a few short months from now. Cool. Well, listen, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Airbnb Blueprint podcast. Take care.